Hello everybody, once again, Jose Rodriguez here. Rendering intents. What the heck are those things? What are they? What do they do? Why do I have to set or choose one over the other? Stay tuned. So you may have noticed when you choose to print through an ICC profile, in other words, you tell your application to print your image and you choose a specific paper in the driver, of course, and then you come back to your application and you notice that because you told it to control color, you have the ability to choose a profile for that paper and also black point compensation and also a rendering intent. Now, before we get into this, don't forget that if you tell your application to control color, you must tell your driver not to control color. Both cannot be doing the same job. Okay, it's either one or the other. So in Canon printers, if you're on Windows operating system, you go to color/intensity manual adjustment, then it will open up a manual adjustment window. You hit matching and then you choose ICM. That will allow the driver to control color if that is what you want, not Photoshop, not Lightroom. But if you tell Photoshop, Lightroom, Qimage, whatever you use to control color, then you set it to none, matching and none. So it's one or the other, okay? Either the driver controls color or the application controls color through an ICC profile. When you tell the driver to control color and you choose a Canon paper, it's going to automatically use that profile anyway. So it's kind of a very easy way to do color management, letting the driver itself control color. But you have to use a paper made for that particular brand of printer or model of printer. All right, so rendering intents. So I want to give you a scenario. Simply what it does, it allows colors that are out of gamut to be brought into gamut so that they can be reproduced somewhat faithfully by the printer, depending on the printer's gamut, okay? So you have two basic ones that most people use, perceptual and relative colorimetric. Perceptual does this. Let's just say, for instance, and I'm gonna paint you a scenario here. You are in a circular theater, and the stage is in the very smack dead center of that circular theater, and there are walls on the outside, but there are some doors, and there's a bunch of circular rows of seats from the center all the way to the inner wall of that space. Colors, in this case it will be people, colors come in and they find their position according to their color value, and they sit on their appropriate chair. Okay, that means that those chairs match the color of the person, and it's a match. They are inside the theater, therefore they are in gamut. Now, there may not be enough colors to fill every one of those millions and millions of chairs. Okay, so there'll be some spaces that will be empty. Now, rendering intents will come into the rescue because that image that you have may contain some out of gamut colors. Those colors are outside that theater. They don't have an assigned seat because they are beyond that gamut, if you will. So relative colorimetric says, hey, it's a free-for-all. Everybody come on inside. Okay, there's no room. We'll just make people get up and move toward the center. So now you're shifting people that should have been in a specific chair, color chair, to move to another position. It may be the same hue, but it will be slightly different. And they do that only to allow the outer gamut colors to step in. You're shifting all of your existing colors that were already in gamut will be made to shift to allow the other ones to be forced in. Well, that may not bother anyone because it might be a picture of a landscape. Who cares if those colors are slightly shifted? Who cares? It won't matter at all. No one's going to say, hey, I'm going to take this print over to the Grand Canyon and I'm going to hold it there, and I want to make sure that every one of those tones that I see matches the print. No one's going to do that. So it doesn't matter if your colors shift a little bit. But what if I'm doing some portraiture of some babies? And those skin tones, I don't want them shifted, okay? What if I'm doing some group shots of a wedding party and the girls are wearing lavender dresses and it's a specific shade that if it comes out even the slightest bit off, they're not going to be very happy. What if I'm doing some commercial work and I have some products with labeling and there's some very specific logo colors that cannot be changed any way, shape, or form? I don't want them shifted to allow other colors within that scene that I created, that advertisement that I created, to be brought in, even though they're not important. They're not part of those logo colors. Those are the ones I care about, you see. They come in and they may cause the logo colors to be shifted. I get a different result and I get fired. Okay? That's what will happen. They'll never hire me again. So the secret is to use relative colorimetric. Whatever colors are already in gamut, in other words, they have seats, will never be asked to get up and move. Never. They'll remain in their seats. In whatever amount of room we have, that will allow whatever number of colors are outside to possibly be brought in. Those out of gamut colors, tough luck. Tough luck. They will be squeezed in as well as they possibly can. They may not be in perfect positions color-wise, but they will be squeezed in. The printer will be able to render them one way or another. But the colors that are important to me, those baby skin colors, those dresses for those bridesmaids, and those logo colors will not be shifted. They will remain identical the way they were before I applied the rendering intent. Okay. Now there are some other rendering intents basically dedicated for graphic arts type work. In other words, solid colors, Pantone colors, and that sort of thing. So that is not really used for your normal continuous tone type imaging work. All right, so that is it, rendering intents. I use relative colorimetric 100% of the time. And you can check that by soft proofing your image. If you soft proof your image through an ICC profile for that paper, then you can apply the different rendering intents and see how it actually affects the look of the image. I have videos already covering that. So you can go back to my color management workflow playlist and look up some of those videos where I actually demonstrated on the computer. So that is it. Two ways, rendering intents. There's only two rendering intents you should be worried about: perceptual and relative. You want your colors to stay the same? Relative. You want your colors to be brought in and forced in so that they all can be reproduced one way or another, but they're not going to be the same as original. They're going to be shifted. Then rendering intent for you would be perceptual. That's it. That works for your landscapes, your oceanscapes, whatever doesn't have critical colors that must remain exactly the way they were originally. Okay? I hope you guys understood that a little bit. I try to explain it a little bit weird way, but sort of so it makes sense. I like my circular theater analogy a lot. I think it makes me get it also as well. So thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.